So, welcome back to this introduction to dApp development. In the previous two lessons, we've had an overview of what a dApp is, and we explored the basic architecture of a dApp. In this lesson, we're going to make a basic Hello World app using Next.js, which is going to be the basic of the dApp that we create in subsequent episodes. We're also going to upload our project to the cloud version control system, GitHub. So as I've said in a couple of the earlier episodes, if you have extensive experience with Next.js, then you can probably skim this episode. We're not actually going to do anything dApp specific. We're just making a basic Hello World web app using Next.js, uploading it to GitHub, and then we'll be done. So as a brief reminder of something that I've mentioned in both of the previous episodes, dApps have a front end that is very similar in appearance and how it operates to a regular app, but it's the back end where we find the most difference. But in today's episode, we're just going to create the front end as a basic Hello World app in Next.js that we can then use and improve in the subsequent episodes. So I'm going to give a really brief introduction to Next.js and GitHub, but I'm kind of going to assume that everyone has a little bit of familiarity with these or similar frameworks and systems before they come into this. If you've never met Next.js and never heard of it before, or if you've never heard of GitHub before, then I strongly advise that you maybe do a little bit of reading around, get yourself a little bit familiar with the concept of a React.js framework, which Next.js is, and with version control systems as well, or code storage systems such as GitHub, and then maybe come back to this. But just as a reminder, Next.js is a framework built around React.js, and it allows us to quickly create performant front-end web applications and deploy them using Next.js's integrations with deployment platforms such as Vercel. Similarly, GitHub is a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration. And the fact that we're going to upload our code to GitHub will make it very easy for us to integrate it on Vercel, which is the deployment platform that Next.js is super tightly integrated with. Okay, so here we are at the terminal. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a directory that we can put all of our subsequent dApps in. So, and I'm going to cd into that. I'm then going to run an npx command, which will create the basic Next.js app. So you just run npx, create next app latest, and then we can call it my app or my dApp. We'll call it my dApp, that's totally fine. Or my first dApp, why not? And then I'm just going to say yes to all of the default Next.js configurations. So TypeScript, sure. We want a lint, sure. And now it's going to do its thing. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, now we're all done. I'm going to run code dot to open VS Code. Obviously, if you use a different code editor, then that's totally fine, but I'm going to use VS Code. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it from here. There we go. And now we've opened up my first dApp. I'm going to open the integrated terminal. And then from here, I can simply run npm run dev, and it will start this Next.js app in development mode. Again, I appreciate that I'm not going into the details, but this course isn't designed to teach Next.js development. So if any of this is confusing, then do read up on Next.js. There's all sorts of documentation online. Okay, so now our Next.js app is running. So it tells me it's running on localhost port 3000. So we can just jump over to a browser. Amazing, there it is. So let's just make a quick edit to it just to check that the development server is working and everything's working fine. So let's edit this get started by editing app/page.tsx. We'll just edit it to say hello world and check that updates accordingly. So back to our code editor, app, page. I'm just going to expand this a little bit. There we go. Where is it? Get started by editing. So I'm going to delete this and replace it with hello world. Hit save. Recompiles. Head over. Magic. Okay, so that's working great. So now we have our Next.js app working. We've figured out how to edit it. And now all we need to do is push this code to GitHub. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so now we're over on GitHub. And I'm on github.com/new, logged in as myself. And this allows me to create a new repository. So we'll just do the basics here. We're going to call it my first dApp. We'll make it private for now, doesn't really matter. And then we're going to create the repository. So now this means on my personal GitHub, I have a GitHub repository called my first dApp. So now all we really need to do is push our code from our Next.js app that we just made, push it up here, and then we should be fine. So let's go back over. I'm going to stop the dev server from running. And you'll see down here that the Git integration that my VS Code environment has, it's got a little lightning bolt which says that I have edited the code. So I'm going to commit my little edit. So git status is just going to confirm that I've just modified this one page. Git add, git commit, hello world. And then I'm going to, once I've committed this, I'm going to go back to GitHub and look at the instructions that it tells me to basically hook up my local repository with this GitHub repository. So I'm going to copy this. And then if I go back to GitHub, it will have pushed, because I ran this command, this code to this repository. So I'll just hit refresh. And there we go. The GitHub repository has our Next.js app, and we've seen how to run it locally. So we're ready to start turning this app into a dApp. So I'll go back to the slides just to show you the thank you slide. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this brief episode and look forward to seeing you in episode 4, where we're going to dive into wallets.